King and Queen, as well as Prince William and Princess Catherine. But there are plenty of voices of opposition in the UK. Thousands gathered in London today to rally against the president and his policies. And Mr. Trump arrived.
Come on.
NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez outside Buckingham Palace, and NBC News international correspondent Raf Sanchez outside Parliament, where protesters were earlier. Gabe, I'll start with you. Talk to us about what we've seen so far today. There's been a lot, and what else is on the agenda tonight?
Yeah, that's right, Kate. Quite the day here across the pond. And as you mentioned, the president arriving at Windsor Castle earlier today, greeted by the King and Queen and the Prince William and Princess Kate as well. 1,300 military personnel were there in really a historic ceremony. The president inspecting the troops you see right there, with King Charles also paying his respects to the late Queen Elizabeth, who he has repeatedly said he deeply admired, and also taking part in watching a spectacular military flyover as well. Now this all comes, Kate, as tomorrow we're expecting him to meet with the Prime Minister at his country residence. There are still a lot of topics on the agenda left to discuss, including trade, the ongoing wars in Ukraine and Gaza. And also first, later on tonight, actually in just a short time at Windsor Castle, the president expected to take part in a white tie banquet. Around 160 guests expected, Kate.
Gabe, thanks. Let me turn to Raf. Raf, you've been out there as protesters were there earlier. You talked to people about why they were rallying today.
Yeah, Kate, it was interesting. People here turned out to these protests organized by a group called the Stop Trump Coalition, but there was really a range of causes that brought them out onto the street. Some people said they were unhappy about the president's policy when it comes to Gaza. Others felt he should be doing more to support Ukraine. Some were they don't like his approach to the environment. Take a listen to what one protester told us.
I'm really horrified that the king is receiving him, and I don't think he should have done. I mean, I don't agree with having the king anyway, but that's another whole thing. But I think it's a disgrace that he's here. He's a horrible, horrible, I mean, where do you wrong every day?
And we heard after protested deal with the president. He is the most powerful person in the world, but they really objected to what they saw as a totally unnecessary red carpet treatment. They said this should have been much more businesslike, a lot less pomp and ceremony. Okay.
And Gabe, just quickly, what is the White House saying about that meeting with the Prime Minister, what they expect tomorrow?
Well, look, the White House really hasn't commented on all of these protests. They are focused on exactly what the Prime Minister and the President are set to discuss tomorrow: economic investment. The UK really trying to pitch itself for more U.S. investment in this country, and also to talk about nuclear energy cooperation, as well as in AI. Now, the backdrop to all of this, Kate, is the ongoing Trump tariffs, and certainly this is some tiara diplomacy that the UK government is trying to pull off.
Gabe Gutierrez, Raf Sanchez, thank you both. Well, today marks 1 week since the shooting in Utah that took the life of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. The man accused of killing him, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, appeared in court for the first time virtually on Tuesday. He was formally charged with aggravated murder and 6 other counts. If convicted, he faces the death penalty. Since then, we've heard from former President Barack Obama, who addressed the killing publicly for the first time. He spoke about President Trump's rhetoric in the wake of that attack.
When I hear not just our current president, but his aides, who have a history of calling political opponents vermin, enemies, who need to be targeted, that speaks to a broader problem that we have right now, and something that we're going to have to grapple with.
NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson is at Utah Valley University where the shooting happened. Steve, at this time yesterday, we were presented with a lot of new information from prosecutors. Remind us, what have we learned in the past 24 hours and anything new today?
Yeah, an incredible amount of information, an incredible fidelity of information yesterday from the county attorney's office, formalized in a charging document detailing a lot of this. One being new DNA evidence tying Robinson to the scene found on the trigger of the rifle that was used. The rifle itself, we learned where it came from. We thought maybe it was purchased either legally, illegally. It was passed down through the family. And the method of apprehension, how the parents were involved in helping turn their son in. The biggest piece, though, obviously the text messages between Robinson and his roommate. Somebody, authorities say he was romantically linked with. Starting off that text chain, telling the roommate to find a note. The note essentially saying that if I have an opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, I'm going to do that. I'm paraphrasing there, but also saying, you know, in a series of texts going back and forth, the roommate incredulous, not knowing that the shooting was happening, asking, hey, was this really you? And again, paraphrasing, but Robinson saying, yes, it was me. I'm sorry. Robinson remains in county jail. Next court appearance, as we know it, the 29th. Kate?
And Steve, there's going to be a memorial for Charlie Kirk this Sunday in Arizona. It sounds like it's going to be huge. Do we know who's speaking?
Absolutely huge. State Farm Arena, it's the home of the Arizona Cardinals, 70,000 people. We know it's basically a who's who of the White House, right? President Trump, Vice President Vance, RFK, many more. Stephen Miller going to be there as well. We're hearing it's first come, first served, the entire red, white, and blue. Erica Kirk speaking as well. I should mention that. Is security expected to be tight? And they're really worried about these public events, so they say they're doing all they can to make sure that area is locked down. Okay.
All right, Steve Patterson for us in Utah. Steve, thank you. We have breaking news involving your money. The Federal Reserve has decided to cut interest rates. The central bank voting to cut them by 1/4 percentage point. This is the first rate cut since December of last year. It's also the first interest rate decision involving President Trump's new pick for Fed Governor, Stephen Myron. He's taken a temporary leave from his regular post at the White House. Some economists have raised concerns over what this unusual move means for the independence of the central bank. Let's bring in NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung. So, Brian, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell spoke a short time ago about why they did this. What did he have to say?
Yeah, well, again, the Federal Reserve cutting interest rates by 1/4 percentage point. That is the first interest rate cut from the central bank since the end of last year. The Fed Chairman Jerome Powell described this as sort of a, taking insurance on the economy, given that the jobs market has shown weaker than, compared to earlier this year, pace of monthly job gains. Take a listen to the Fed Chair Jerome Powell in terms of how he's describing this moment in the economy.
Overall, the market slowing in both the supply of and demand for workers is unusual. In this less dynamic and somewhat softer labor market, the downside risks to employment appear to have risen.
So if I can translate that Fed speak right there, essentially what he's saying is that the jobs market is weakening a little bit. Nothing recessionary there, but in order to prevent a further slowing down of the jobs market, he wants to make sure people have jobs. That's the reason why they decided to cut interest rates today, even if it does risk perhaps higher inflation from here.
And Wall Street's been expecting this decision, but bottom line, what does it mean for all of us, right? Especially when it comes to mortgage rates, to loans, maybe even our savings accounts.
Yeah, well, look, when it comes to the Fed lowering interest rates, that means that borrowing costs will be a little bit lower. We've already seen mortgage rates price that in. It was somewhere in the mid 7% at the beginning of this year. It's now at the low 6%. That's certainly welcome news to those that are on the sidelines of the housing market. But one downside of this is that it does make savings rates a little bit lower. So if you were looking at some of those high yield savings accounts, it might be a little bit lower in terms of putting your money there and getting a yield back than it was prior to the beginning of this year. But I want to point out again, we're talking about a 1/4% of lowering here. We're not talking about 1 full percentage point or 2 full percentage points. So it's not like we should expect to see mortgage rates or saving rates go down by 1 or 2% as a result of this.
All right, Brian Chung for us. Brian, thanks so much.